Hi, thank you very much for being here today. I'm really excited for this celebration. We've been planning it for a long time, and it was a little hard to figure out the exact time to make this work because we wanted it to be in October. And I apologize for the fact that it's the middle of the day celebration. I, for one, have pretty much cleared my calendar after this. I don't know if anybody else has. I am going to try and make it to David's State of the University address. I may giggle. Do you have a joke? That'll be perfect. Okay. All right. As you can tell, I giggle. So we have a nice lineup today. I wanted to talk just a little bit about IBB here before we hand it over to our other speakers. So the mission of the Institute of Biosciences and Bioengineering is to provide a framework for organizing research and education in a very cross-disciplinary manner within Rice and with the Texas Medical Center. Now, a lot of you may say, well, there's this thing called the Gulf Coast Consortium, and how is that related to what we do within the Texas Medical Center? So IBB actually predates the GCC. And so now the GCC handles a very large amount of research collaboration within the Texas Medical Center. At Rice, we do still participate in a lot of inter-institutional collaborations, and some of that falls within the scope of the IBB, but then we also try to promote interdisciplinary faculty collaboration within IBB as well. We also work a lot with various institutes, so today you're going to hear from the president of the Texas Heart Institute, Dr. James Willerson is here. We also have had some activities related to TMCX, so we're still very heavily involved with the Texas Medical Center and activities outside Rice. So my predecessor, Dr. Rebecca Richards-Cordum, had an amazing set of fun activities during her 2 years as director, and we've called this the Year of Listening, where there were a large number of white papers that people developed, and collectively, everybody worked together to present things to each other, and they were organized into these 6 main clusters. So these clusters are a way for us to now look at what areas of research are already represented and what might be areas where Rice has a lot of expertise, and this could be a chance for us to move forward and try to develop new research efforts and training grant opportunities. So even though I just started in June or July, actually it was May, I have been busy. We have submitted a number of proposals for educational initiatives to renew the Beckman Scholars Program, which Rice has had 2 rounds of, and we'd like to have a 3rd round. We put in a summer undergraduate REU type program to the American Heart Association. The IBB was also the focus of an HHMI professor application. We've submitted a large multi-investigator research proposal to DARPA called Bottom-Up Carpentry, and our executive director, Paul, will be telling you about that later. And then we've also, together with GCC, run a NanoX symposium. And so this wasn't a situation where we helped them advertise it. We actually really ran it together. So we work a lot with the GCC. And so now I'd like to introduce our president, David Leebron, to comment on 3 decades of innovation for IBB.
Thank you, Jane. Now that I know what I'm supposed to comment on, I'm just going to take the speech that I wrote and tear it up. So it's great to be here to celebrate 30 years of the IBB. And maybe one thing to do is put this a little bit in the historic perspective of the university, and maybe even universities generally. As most of you know, our university is now 104 years old. For about the first 3/4 of that, we did incredibly well as a university, and you can see this in lots of different ways. We had a renowned Department of Physics, Department of Chemistry that was the home of some of the most important discoveries of the last half century. But we remain kind of underinvested in many ways in biosciences, life sciences. That was reflected in some ways in the research stream that we had, very little funding coming out of the NIH. But the history of Rice is really a history of trying to expand our endeavor. We're in some ways a kind of very unusual university. The way I have taken to describe Rice is we are the smallest wide-spectrum elite research university. And each of those words has a certain meaning to it and import. And over the years, what we've tried to do is build out from a very strong base, even while maintaining our comparatively small size. One of my favorite questions about Rice, probably I shouldn't discuss in this format, is if we're so rich, how come we feel so poor? And the answer to that question is the breadth of what we do. When I came here 12 years ago, what attracted me to Rice was this incredible breadth and ambition of this, what we are is we're the second smallest member, maybe now the third smallest, of the Association of American Universities. And one of the things that results from that is how we succeed. And the second thing I like to say about Rice is that we are too small to be arrogant. And what follows from that is how we achieve things is through collaboration. And that collaboration is sometimes internal and sometimes external. And as we build up our presence in the biosciences, the way we have done that in many respects is to build across the university, and that's really what the IBB stands for, is an effort to bring together efforts from across the university and create this terrific presence for us, particularly with the creation and rise of the Department of Bioengineering, which is now, I think, our only perhaps top 5 ranked department. But all of this is built in a spirit of collaboration, not really for Rice an optional spirit of collaboration, but a necessary spirit of collaboration. And I'm so pleased to see Jim Willerson here, one of our true medical icons of the city of Houston, because he really represents that, the need to reach out. When I came here 12 years ago, I went to a dinner. Jim just dragged me out of this dinner and said, "Don't forget about us. We're across the street." And that's a lot of what we're about and the IBB is about. And that's how we've succeeded over the last 30 years in building a strength and reputation in the biosciences and bioengineering. And I want to particularly thank the prior heads of the IBB, Rebecca Richards-Cordum and Yusuf Shamu. The IBB is built on collaboration, but collaboration doesn't actually happen without leadership. And so, Jane, I want to thank you. All of you are here. This is now a vital part of what we're achieving at Rice University. Let me say, sort of take one last remark as we think about how universities have changed over time and what's necessary to fuel their success. I often get asked the question, somebody will say, explain to me how universities are organized. And my response is always the same. To do that, we need to go back to the Holy Roman Empire and talk about the Byzantine structure of the organizations of the Middle Ages, because that's where universities came out of. And that's the only way you can understand why a university today is organized the way it is. And that is in large parts of universities each trying to do, to some extent, their own thing, independently, sort of silos. And that's how the Holy Roman Empire was organized. But what it takes to succeed is the ability to take those parts and bring them together and do things that none of those parts could possibly do. And that's one of the strengths, I think, of the IBB, again, is bringing those parts together, 120 or whatever faculty from across the university, partners not only across Houston, but across the globe, all to work together in pursuit of a vision that demands a level of interdisciplinarity that was almost foreign to the university a half-century ago. And oddly enough, you need structures to do that. You can't just wait and hope that people come together. You need institutions charged with that responsibility. And then the last thing I really want to say is, and now I'm almost coming to the topic that you said I was going to talk about, is innovation. And this is, again, a way in which universities today are different. I spent part of my schooling in Germany and visited these great old universities in places like Tübingen and Heidelberg, kind of modeled on, literally developing out, in some sense, of monasteries, in many respects, modeled on monasteries, this sense of being apart from the cares of society. And that's not what universities have become, and it's not what we are today. We are engines of innovation and growth, thinking not only about how to develop new knowledge, and that is vital to what universities do, the pursuit of fundamental knowledge, of curiosity-driven research. But we also take responsibility now for taking that knowledge as a source of innovation and changing the world and changing the possibilities for people, and particularly in the biosciences, changing the possibility for health and welfare of not only our population here in Houston and across the nation, but the population across the globe. So I want to thank Jane and her predecessors and everyone involved in the IBB. This has been essential to the success of Rice, but more important, it's been a source of new ideas and innovation for the world of health. Thank you and congratulations.